was a firefighter, paramedic with the Kalamazoo Fire Department. I just think that's cool. And later cross-trained as a police officer. In Southern Arizona, Mark has built a very successful residential real estate practice, and he and his wife Tanya have been married for over 10 years and live in the thriving town of Oro Valley. And with that, we'll give it to Representative Fencham.
Thank you, Pam. So to update the bio just a little bit, it's now 14 years, so I haven't updated the bio in a little while. And I've graduated summa cum laude from Grand Canyon University with a degree in government with state and local policy. So how about maybe we figure out what we're supposed to do so we don't break it any more than it already is broken? Yeah. I've been asked to talk a little bit about ESAs, and one of the things I'd like to relate to you a discussion that Southern Arizona Leadership Council had last week, so it's very timely. And it deals with almost 100,000 jobs that we can't fill because we don't have the technical expertise amongst the population of people who are looking for a job. They'd love to work. They just don't have the certificate or the education available to them in order to fill that job. So it was not lost on me that while we were listening to all of the experts talk about this, they happened to have the good fortune to sit with Shane Burgess, Dr. Shane Burgess from U of A. And I said, you know what, it sure sounds to me like we're funding the wrong thing. We're funding process, but we're not funding people. He looked at me and he says, you're exactly right, because if you fund the people, the process will rise to the occasion. Doesn't that sound a lot like the ESA program? That if we empower people to make decisions about where their education will go, the kid, like my little brother, Eric Fencham, now I think he has a PhD in electrical engineering, was building crystal radio sets, I want to say in like 4th grade, without instructions, by the way. And not only did he go through college in metallurgical engineering and then a master's degree in electronics, and if you've got a computer chip in one of your, well, all of your computers, if they were made before about 10 years ago, just kind of like mine, have a triquint chip in them. He's responsible for most of those chips. So it's interesting that when we fund the right things, we get amazing results. One of the ideas that's on the drawing board right now is an apprenticeship scholarship account, which means that kids that are 9th grade till 12th grade, if they voice an interest in electrical engineering, maybe they don't want to be an electrician yet, but it's like, hey, you know, I'm kind of interested in that. Why can't they have a dual track system where they're able to take classes that will qualify both in high school and in community college? By the time they're in 12th grade, they have got a level of certification that they can move into one of these unfilled, underemployed jobs. Doesn't that make sense? Then you add to that the ability for them to earn an income so that they don't have to accumulate debt for higher education. Here's another example. You got kids that are 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. They could be working on getting a certification to operate a D3 cat, bulldozer, during that period of time, so that when they graduate from high school, not only do they have a certificate to run that piece of heavy equipment, they also have a means to earn an income and a pathway for higher education. Now, when you bring this idea up to high school kids, when you ask the customers, the kids, what's their response? Yeah, that sounds like something I'd like to do. But when we talk to the experts, and I want to say educators, I want to say administrators, the bureaucrats, the bureaucratic state, if we're in the business of protecting process, we're overlooking people. So I hope that we're able to grow legs on this piece of legislation as we begin to contemplate it. I don't know if Representative Fillmore was in the room. I don't know if he's left or not, but John Fillmore is actually looking at something along this line. I support him. We should be funding people over process. So I'm going to yield the rest of my time, since I was only going to talk about ESAs, primarily because I want to give you time to ask questions that are more specific to what you want to know about. So thank you very much.
A House legislator and state senator has labeled as the bravest teacher advocate in the state of Arizona. Kat has been an Arizona resident for 24 years, and she is serving in her 19th year as a reading specialist teacher. It's also been suggested she may be the only Republican teacher in the Phoenix Union District. Kat holds degrees as a paralegal from Stevenson University, Criminal Justice Studies at ASU, Masters from NAU. She is a master teacher and administrator certified, and tonight she's going to talk to us about the classroom code of ethics.
Thank you. Thank you for having me tonight. It's an honor. I want you to kind of talk through our timeline on to how we became to the classroom code of ethics. And next slide. And as we look at the classroom code of ethics, we really have to look at why teachers went into teaching. And it's a calling, it's a passion, and that's what we have here in our state. We have teachers that have a calling and a passion to teach, but they're leaving our state. And as they leave our state, there seems to be a predicament going on with politics and advocacy taking place in our classrooms. Next slide. And when you look at Title 15 is the law. This is what teachers follow. And when the book of law, we follow it down to we have our district policies. And as we go down to our district policies, we have the governing boards. So working with Representative Mark Fencham, he had a House bill. The House bill did not get heard. We had teachers calling on a rotation schedule, and we couldn't get the House bill up. So we asked him what were our other alternatives that we could do to remove this political advocacy that was clearly taking place in our classrooms and bullying our children in the state. So he helped us draft a petition, and we have the map there of Arizona, and those are the regions that we are out and about on, and we are circulating the petition actively. As we go, you can see we need 260,000 signatures to make the ballot. We believe as teachers and citizens and United States American citizens that we want this on the ballot. We want to put it to the voters. Do we need Title 15 to have a classroom code of ethics to be adopted by the Arizona State Board of Education? Next slide. As we go on, I want to take you through that timeline. I was a co-founder of Red for Ed. I am no longer. We were hijacked. It was a political movement that came in unbeknownst to innocent teachers that just had a passion to deliver education to our students. We were sent to communications training back in roughly 2017. This was paid for by our local association and National Educators Association. When we were flown to Chicago, this was a core group where we were taught how to write a theory of change. When we wrote our theory of change, there was a gentleman in the picture, Derek Harris. Derek Harris's theory of change was how to get rid of our governor, Governor Doug Ducey. I didn't think he was all there. I'll be honest with you. I was sitting at my table and I didn't know. I thought we were there to bring communications training back to our public relations committee. My theory of change was written how to use Twitter to influence technology and raise funding in the classroom because we were actively needing funding for technology education. As you look at this timeline, you'll see Rules for Radical. That was one of the books that was used in the boardroom. You will also see that it quickly merged into Invest in Ed. We didn't know what had hit us. It was a freight train. This merged so quickly that when I took the Invest in Ed package to my accountant, he said it was a ticking time bomb. At that time, I quickly withdrew. My letter to this day has not been published. They have my resignation. You will look down at the bottom. You can see that the Invest in Ed quickly merged with SOS, Save Our Schools. In that photo, you can see Mr. Dave Lujan standing with Noah Carvelis. Then quickly, the Goldwater Institute had a book talk, and it was down at Changing Hands bookstore. Rebecca Friedrichs, who wrote Standing Up to Goliath, came out and spoke. She was like a godsend to us. We were all thrilled that she brought her message about what was happening inside NEA, National Education Association, and AEA, Arizona Educators Association, and CTA, Classroom Teachers Association. When she came with her message, we knew we had an angel. We knew we had a lifeline on how to get out because there is a fear among teachers that if you do not belong, they'll come after you. So as we try to break through the walls, we can also see that we had some delegate assemblies, which is what our associations use, to bring them together and rally them together, and they were knocking on doors and canvassing. Then we have Mr. Mark Fencham, who came in with his petition because our House bill did not get heard. So we were able to get the House bill out. Our next big step was working with Purple for Parents. Purple for Parents came in at a time when the Comprehensive Sexual Education Plan was being heard down at the State Board of Education. We overflowed that room. We made about 3 rooms with extra. That was because the teachers felt they had support. We had support of our community, and we were uncovering what was taking place with a political agenda that was coming into hijacking our schools. And last, you can see the political campaign that Red for Ed is actively using inside our classrooms, inside our workrooms, and also just in their statements that they're saying in the classrooms. One more slide. As you can see, that Invest in Ed tax pack, it's important that you see the messaging they were delivering with that tax pack, but we did not know it was coming, but it came. It came like a freight train, and we didn't know, so people were quickly abandoning ship. Next slide. I was quickly labeled and called a traitor by an NEA assembly of 7 states. Next slide. Oh, and you can see there on Twitter and social media, I was then cyberbullied. I was called a turncoat, and I quickly withdrew from AEA, of course. And next slide. And then you can also see they were on social media to attack my identity. I was bullied, fake accounts have been made. To this day, my identity is still rolling around. But now that I know I have my Republican Party behind me, and I know the legislators are listening to us, they're not going to allow this to happen. And that's why we need the Classroom Code of Ethics. Because if they're bullying me, they're bullying your children in the classroom. It was just the other day, I heard a teacher state in the library to a senior English class, "I just love Joe Biden." That just subjected all 36 of those seniors on their senior class project, because now they're going to work to impress their teacher and give their teacher what they want for that letter grade. Oh, time, so I will take questions later.
Thank you, Kat. Thanks. So Kat provided a segue to our next speaker, Fernando Gonzalez. Fernando was born in El Paso, Texas, but he currently resides in Tucson. And Kat referred to the sex ed curriculum, that it's making its way into some of our public school districts. Tucson actually experienced this very recently. And Fernando's going to share his experiences with that with us. But Fernando worked as a field director for the Libre Initiative and Americans for Prosperity. In 2012, he ran unsuccessfully for the Pima County Board of Supervisors. That campaign effort confirmed to him that many in our community, and especially Hispanics, are uninformed as well as ill-informed on many of the political issues that surround and affect us. This motivated Fernando to start a radio program and to continue to work within the community. And he is here tonight to share with us the experiences and the role that he played in rallying the parents with the sex ed curriculum in Tucson. I think it was last month, very recently.
You know, I was trying to be a cool grandfather, and I was trying to tell a joke to my grandchildren. And so it involved a cell phone. The joke did. Involved a cell phone, a fax machine, and a pager. And needless to say, you're smiling. Okay, thank you. Needless to say, they didn't get the joke because they didn't know what a fax machine was or a pager. So anyway, and so a lot of things have changed, you know, with technology and things like that. But the reality is that there's certain things that have not changed throughout the ages, and that's, you know, common sense, morals, and values. And I just want to say real quickly, you know, when I turned 18, I registered for the draft, and then I registered to vote, and I registered as a Democrat because all Hispanics were Democrats. There was, you know, that was part of our culture, you might say. So after I found out, you know, because of my parents' ethic, that I was not a Democrat. And so I went and almost 40 years ago registered as a Republican. I've been a Republican ever since. Um, you know, there's a website or there's a Facebook page in Facebook, obviously, and it's in Spanish, and it says, "Con mis hijos no te metas," and the translation is, "Don't mess with my kids." And this group is so huge. I mean, they have groups in Colombia, Bolivia, Chile, Costa Rica, France, Peru, Uruguay, Paraguay, Ecuador, Argentina, and Panama. And this group really was born out of the fact that there was a worldwide movement to really sexualize our kids. And so they got together, and you know, I like that name, Con mis hijos no te metas. And just today I went ahead and created a Facebook page, Don't Mess with My Kids. So, so anyway, and so I say this because, you know, one of the things that happened down in Tucson, and I'm not going to talk so much about the curriculum itself because most of us know what a lot of these curriculums include. But one of the things that I wanted to mention is that Hispanics and Latinos have always been kind of very conservative when it comes to family, when it comes to social issues, and even politically. And so what happened is that we were informed that there was this curriculum that was trying to be instituted at TUSD, Tucson Unified School District. Prior to that, there was a Sunnyside a school district wanted to implement a sex curriculum. But that was even worse. I mean, they were using the curriculum from Planned Parenthood, and they were using Youth Advocate. I mean, you open up that book, and it was like you were reading a pornographic magazine, really. And so we kind of, a few parents got together, and we kind of, you know, showed up to the meetings, and we figured we'd go ahead and give our opinion. Because I believe that, and one of the main things that the parents were saying, the kids belong to us. They don't belong to the government. They don't belong to a school district. They belong to us. And many times when you cross that line, and sex is one of those lines, you know, the reality is that, you know, sex education is not even required to be taught in high school. And so, what? 1 minute. Oh, 1 minute. Oh, shoot, I better hurry up here. So really quickly, I'll try to speak as fast as I can. So we were told about this curriculum. Sunnyside kind of put it on the sideline, and they kind of backed off. And so we started to get together, and they were stalling us. They weren't giving us the curriculum. We had asked them to give us the curriculum, and oh, it's not ready, but they were going to vote on it. So anyway, so what happened, we got together with several groups, including Paul, who's here with Fort Tucson, and other activists in the community, and we started to rally the parents. And so we decided that we were going to have our voice heard at these meetings, and so we started showing up to school board meetings. We told everybody to dress in white and to show up, and incidentally, in one of the meetings, they caught on to the fact that we were all dressing in white. So what they were doing is, as people were coming in who were for the curriculum, they were giving them white T-shirts, so they would blend among the crowd. And so anyway, so the last meeting that we had, and I know my time's almost up, the last meeting that we had is we told everybody to switch to blue. So we got there early, and the room was full with blue shirts. All I want to say today to finish up real quick, and is that, you know, we don't hate gays. We're not against the LGBT community. And nowadays, if you disagree with someone, all of a sudden you're a racist, you're a xenophobic, you're a homophobic, you know, and that's not the case. But we want to have the opportunity. We didn't go there to pick a fight. We went in to defend our rights as parents and grandparents to teach our own kids in this particular area. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Fernando. And then we have Forrest Moriarty. He is the father of one adult daughter and two teenage sons, both whom are diagnosed with autism. He owns a local social media marketing and advertising company. When Red for Ed was planning their strike, he was sounding the alarm to friends and family. And when the teachers union actually did walk out on our Arizona families, Forrest took to Facebook and he organized over 6,000 Arizona parents. Then, when Red for Ed tried to raise our taxes, elect Democrats statewide, and make it known that they plan to help end school choice in Arizona, Forrest decided to run for office. So we have tonight with us the founder of Purple for Parents and candidate for Arizona House of Representatives in LD16, Forrest Moriarty.
Thank you very much. I appreciate being invited to come speak here. I'm here primarily to raise an alarm. Okay, so the fire alarm is going off in your kid's school. And what I want you to know is that Red for Ed is only one of the most recent branded opportunities by the left to take your kids from you. Because what they want to do is they want to indoctrinate your kids through the public schools using your tax dollars to teach them that what you're teaching them is wrong. That's what's going on, okay? And it's taking effect in many different ways. Purple for Parents was started as the allergic reaction to Red for Ed, because if anybody was paying attention for 5 minutes to what Red for Ed was about, you could easily see this was a socialist movement. I grew up as a military brat. I lived in South Korea and what was West Germany. My dad took me on a trip to Berlin and through Checkpoint Charlie into East Berlin to show me as a kid, this is what communism and socialism looks like. So I identified it pretty early. My wife is a teacher for Mesa Public Schools. She's actually a speech language pathologist. She initially, like Kat, thought Red for Ed was benign, and most people did, right? When you saw Red for Ed, who doesn't get behind the fact that teachers are underpaid, cops are underpaid, firefighters are underpaid, right? A lot of people go, yeah, great, and that's the end of it, right? They use that to actually push a political agenda. And when she discovered what it was about, she stopped being involved, and they started the harassment, just like they did to Kat. That's what made me create Purple for Parents, because I own a social media marketing company. If you're gonna attack my wife and make my wife feel bad at work to the point she comes home crying and doesn't want to go to work every day, I'm probably going to take you out on the internet. That's what I'm going to do, right? So that's what got me started in that. And within 3 days of the strike happening, we went from 200 parents in the East Valley that were very activated and against Red for Ed to 6,000 in 3 days, just like that, right? Because people woke up and went, whoa, so you're telling me you're going to hold my kids' education hostage so you can get a pay raise? Because that's what they were doing, right? And if you look at all of their goals, they were pretty much written exactly like Democrat talking points, right? No new tax cuts in Arizona until we fully fund education. This is the kind of stuff that you're up against. The schools are run, like we all as Republicans, we look at limiting the size of government and reducing the size of government, making government more efficient. Half of Arizona's budget, what's our budget at? 11 billion?
The part we have control over?
Yeah.
11.1, 11.2
Yeah.
billion.
Half of that's education. So this is literally should be Republicans' #1 issue, should be education. Because the Democrats are using public schools to indoctrinate our kids with regards to sex, with regards to religion, with regards to politics, and they're using our tax dollars to do it. So this is why I'm here, because I want you guys to be aware. Just as an example, I don't know how much time I have. Okay, it's perfectly normal. Check this out sometime.
Can we pass it around?
Yeah, sure. This book, if I were to hand this book to your child, you'd punch me in the mouth, right? This book is just an example of one of many examples that Purple for Parents has been out uncovering and exposing to the public and to parents at large. And there's another one, right? Where what they're trying to do is they're going to teach, yeah, they're going to teach your kids. Here's some examples of what CSE or comprehensive sex ed is all about. They want to teach your kids as low as 4th grade about anal sex. They want to teach your kids as low as 1st or even kindergarten about transgender and gay, right? They want to, it's not a matter of LGBTQ rights and whatever. This is, our kids shouldn't be learning about that stuff. Like, let them play soccer. You know what I mean? Like, why are we going down that path? That's just one of many issues. The sex ed stuff is out of control. And as Kat mentioned, when they tried to push this through at the state level, we had hundreds of parents storm the Arizona Department of Education and demand that they not change the rules and allow that stuff to go through, because we're not going to stand that. And like Fernando said, you know, you take your hands off my kids. So what I want you to do, guys, just as a matter of action, grab one of these flyers on the way out. This has our information on it of what Purple for Parents is trying to accomplish in Arizona, as well as how to get involved and how to contact with us online. Because what we need most of all is we need people to tell people, we need people to volunteer and help, and then we need people to help us lead to stop this stuff in Arizona. Thank you.
Thank you, Forrest. Okay, so now it's your turn. I'm going to try to moderate questions. All that I ask is if you have a comment, just hold that. Let's just do questions first for the panel, since we are so fortunate tonight to have them all here from Tucson, Oro Valley. They've given their time to us, so let's take advantage of it. So, questions. Okay, in the back.
I'm Jamie Kelly. One of the things that we're seeing a lot of is less than 3% of graduating seniors are eligible to join the military because of a variety of reasons. By the time they go into law enforcement or they're eligible to carry a handgun, it's down to less than 1.5%. What are you guys suggesting that we do to help change that narrative?
As you heard Representative Fencham talk about the empowerment scholarship accounts, we need school choice. You know, that's all I'm going to say on that, is that we need school choice.
That we have like AZ Merit and a bunch of other testing metrics that we use to grade the proficiency of students, right? Including things like college readiness, and even for those kids that aren't college ready, just graduating proficient at a high school level. When we look at these statistics, we're looking at math, science, English, history, where they're in our graduating seniors are passing AZ Merit with 30% proficiency, 40% proficiency, 27% proficiency, and yet we have a 90+% graduation rate.
Yeah.
How is that possible? It's what's happening is they're just rubber stamping the kids through and setting them up to fail. And that includes anybody, like the military's having a hard time recruiting people. Well, so are job creators. Nobody can find anybody that fits their needs because the public school system as it stands is failing.
It's been very eloquently said, but I would add to this a very unpopular message. The schools don't own education. Parents own education. So for parents to come out and say the school failed my kids, we need to take a very measured approach, not just as policymakers, but as parents ourselves, and ask the tough question: just how involved were you in helping your child with homework, with reading? It wasn't discovered by my parents that I was dyslexic until I was in 6th grade. I had teachers who weren't paying attention. Now, granted, that's back when we had horse and buggy and whips and all that. But at the end of the day, I mean, I remember the book that I cried over. It was about some farmer with a horse on a hill who had one leg longer than the other. And I could not read the book. My mom didn't know anything about that until she asked me to read it out loud. So parents are part of the equation. And for school districts to begin to push them out, what we will see is an acceleration of failure, not an increase of success.
You know, I've been teaching ESL classes for probably 7-8 years. a lot of my students who are taking those classes are high school graduates. So that just goes to show you how they're just running them through there and really not teaching them, which is one of the things that we brought up to Dr. Trujillo from the superintendent, is that why don't you focus on, academics, English, math, and things like that. And so, because their math and English percentiles are very low in a lot of the public schools. So I experienced that firsthand, where I have to actually teach somebody who's a high school graduate English.
Okay, we have another question on the couch over here.
Anika wants, how do we get these books out of the schools? I mean, that first book that we passed out,
The question is, the books that are going around, how do we get them out of the schools?
You'll be glad to know that Senator Borelli and I actually met with a representative from the Attorney General's office this afternoon. He was stunned to hear the story that we told him, particularly, and Jennifer, help me, Jennifer Kyrene School District got up in front of the school board, basically read him the right, huh? Yeah, no. Jennifer Reynolds, I'm sorry. Man, senior moment. Read the school district the riot act and pointed out to them that what was in the book that she was quoting, and I don't know if it's one of those that's floating around here because I haven't seen it. If that were on a store shelf, it would count as pornography, and that is a felony in the state of Arizona. So the AG's office now has been alerted to it. They're like, we were unaware. So tomorrow morning I'll be crafting a letter to them about the book and all that. There are steps that we can take, and when we made the argument, look, this resembles pornography, and if this is being promoted by a school district or by a superintendent, at what point does that become a felony? So the question is yet unanswered.
And also, I just want to add, I don't know of any teacher that wants to teach that book. Yeah, I would not feel comfortable delivering that. There's legal liability involved, and with those statements that are in there and the pictures that are in there is a great deal of legal liability.
Representative Fencham mentioned the parent in the Kyrene School District who presented to the school board. Well, videos like that happen weekly, monthly, and Purple for Parents tends to capture that and put it on the Facebook page. And so it's a really good way to stay up to speed on what's happening across Arizona in our school districts.
That also needs to be shared.
Often and widely. Shared often and widely.
Be prepared, though. If you join that group, you're going to be exposed to stuff that you don't want to see. And I'm going to tie your two questions together. The reason why we're not ready is because we're spending millions of dollars to teach our kids that stuff. There's districts right now that are spending literally millions of dollars and hiring people on the order of magnitude of $200,000 plus a year to administer these programs to our kids. And yet they need bonds and overrides, right? They need more money.
So we're going to go, Nancy, you have a question.
Yeah, this is a question for Representative Fencham, ESA type. Is the superintendent's office still behind processing ESAs? And what's being done to fix that?
You know, I really wish I could get a straight answer.
Yes,
I can't tell you the answer to that, but I can only assume that they continue to be behind. Now, of course, they want to put up an argument saying, well, we're underfunded. You know, you got $1.5 million to administer a program. That means you could have 10 people and $150K a year. Yeah, you're going to have some other expenses along with that. So bump them down to $120 a year to cover their office-based telephones and computers. So I've asked for an accounting of it. I'm pretty sure I'll never really see what I'm hoping to see. But we do know that there is this culture that has been injected into the ESA program that is to try to dissuade people from using it, because if you delay people long enough, they'll just walk away. It's like, I got to get my kid into school. I've been waiting for 3, 4, 5 months. I don't have time for this. That's the program.
And I just want to add, there's one family that Purple for Parents has connected with the Classroom Code of Ethics team, the Retells, and they continue to suffer every day. And this is holding their child, Emerson, hostage, and basically just, holding the family back from why do they want to be in Arizona? He's working nightly. He's studying a manual to get $2 extra on his paycheck because he'll have to go through another test. She's hurting a family. And this child needs speech pathology, and a few teachers have stepped up, thanks to Purple for Parents for letting us know. But how many other families are out there suffering too? And we're trying to get their story out. We're trying to get teachers to tutor. We said we had, what, 70,000 over there at the state capitol for Redford. Where are they? They're letting the child suffer.
So Kat, Emerson, how long has he been waiting on his ESA?
Oh gosh, it's 9 months plus, but you know, it would feel, yeah, it is. It's unexcusable. And then on top of that, his siblings are suffering because this is emotional, this is financial stress that's going through, the mother's going through, the father's going through, having to pick up extra shifts, having to study a manual to get $2 extra on his paycheck. I know we're putting clothes together to kind of help his siblings, because this is a hardship they didn't see coming. They had an acceptance, denial, rescinded. I mean, this is ridiculous. These children are suffering.
Superintendent Kathy Hoffman has made a campaign pledge to destroy the ESA program. Yeah.
Yeah, well, incidentally, Diane Douglas did it within the budget, the same budget that Hoffman has.
Somehow miraculously got
Yeah,
done.
and I would like to add to this, there are parents who tried calling repeatedly, and I have been able to obtain the call detail report, which shows every call every 15 minutes for every day. So it shows the number of calls going in, number of calls answered, number of calls abandoned, all that stuff. What's interesting is there have been a number of parents who said, yeah, I didn't get anywhere, it rang off the hook, I got frustrated, so I called the teacher helpline. Great, what was your experience? Somebody answered right away, and they said, well, let me go over to the folks that are handling the ESA program and see if I can get somebody to help you. This is anecdotal, one story. Gal comes back to the phone and says, oh, there's nobody answering those calls today. Really? Let that sink in for just a moment. That does not sound to me as an agency who has a sincere desire to fulfill their obligation, which the legislature placed upon them and fully funded.
So I don't know if you guys know this, I have 2 boys with autism. We applied for and were awarded ESA program, right? Because they have autism and special needs, we were awarded $48,000 for the 2 of them for the school year that we could take to a homeschool network. We could homeschool them ourselves, we could do private school, we could do online school, or we could do specialized autism school, right? We searched and we went and interviewed and we figured out that we wanted to go to our local public school. We had that choice, you don't. To me, this is one of the driving forces behind Purple for Parents, is we want every parent and every kid to have that opportunity to be able to take the funding that is set aside by Arizona for your kids, and you take that funding where you want. Because if your public school works for you, like it does for us, great. If it doesn't, you should be able to move your kid and not be hassled by the superintendent to keep your kid in a public school that's failing them.
Okay, Terry, do you have a question?
Nancy answered it, but I asked it, but I do have another question on charter schools. It seems like they're attacking charter schools as well.
Mhm.
And without a charter school, I wouldn't have had choices for my boys.
So charter schools are public schools, but they're privately funded, and they attack. Red for Ed has viciously attacked, and Save Our Schools, mainly Save Our Schools, has viciously attacked charters because they go, oh, this charter school's making all this profit, and the owner, the investor who invested millions of his own dollars to start this charter school is making a killing, right? Well, here's the thing. If they're making so much money and being so profitable, then where's all the public money going?
Right?
I'm just curious.
I would encourage you all to look at the governing board minutes and notice the expenses going out. They're written in 3 columns, and look at the out-of-state travel expenses. I wonder often why we can't have that training here in our state. Why are we traveling to certain states? And look at those states that they are traveling to. That's money that can go to teachers. That's money that teachers can train teachers here in our state. We all have expertise, and we have that to share. We don't need to be traveling out of state and spending $40,000, $50,000. So look at the governing board notes and meetings that they rubber stamp to travel.
I'd like to add that Forrest made a very good point. his choice ended up being a local public school. Now, I've received emails. In fact, I received a programmed email from about a dozen parents while we were going through budget. I chose to send my kid to school, just like 95% of Arizona parents. Well, I just wrote him back and said, thank you for helping me to make my point. You chose. You had the opportunity to choose. It was the right fit for your child. That message apparently shut down their system because they realized that they had just essentially made the argument for school choice. For a large majority of kids, that's probably the best option for them in their parents' opinion. It's up to the parents, and that goes back to the argument that I was talking about. This is a parental partnership with schools. It isn't just a top-down, you're going to do this. I mean, how many times would you like to have your authority over your children interrupted by somebody else? Just how much of that authority do you want to give up?
Somebody described you as probably being the only Republican teacher. That's not an exaggeration. And there's a culture within the teaching community that there, we can worry about sex education all day long, but the reality is that when my grandson comes home and asks his mom about the two parents and the two parent families and the same sex, or when my granddaughter, which is in high school, the form that she had to fill out is, what is your name, where do you live, what pronouns would you like to be called by? And they were all confused. These are high school kids. They're all confused and saying, well, what does this mean? What do you mean? Well, how would I want to be called? Kayla, that's my name. So there's a culture within the teaching community that I tell you what, I had a business, and there was a 5-year-old kid that came and told his mom, you need to vote for, he's first grade, Mom, you need to vote for Obama. And she said, well, why? She says, because he's going to help the Mexicans. And then when I confronted her, she said, oh, he's just a kid. I said, that's the point. He's just a kid, and he's already telling you how you should vote. So we have a serious problem, and I don't know how it could be fixed, to be honest with you.
I know how.
We have
Classroom code
we have
of
a
ethics.
question right here. We're going to move on.
Hi, Ray Michaels, LD11 I don't know if it's happening in this state right now, but there's a normalization of things that are not of moral interest on our part. I don't know if you're aware of I think it's the transvestite story time.
Yeah.
Drag Queen Story Hour.
Is it happening?
Oh yeah, all over the place.
So what they want to do is they want to just make sure that everything becomes normal. Oh, that's just normal. Everything is about normal. And again, the parents need to be part of it, that it's not normal, that it's not supposed to be happening. So where do you stand on that particular?
So to answer this kind of answers a few questions. The answer to these problems, the sex ed, the racial baiting training that they're doing, the social emotional brainwashing, the politicking on school campuses, all of these problems can be solved with one real simple answer: ESA for all. Because then if you want to keep your kids in that environment, have at it. If you don't, you can take your kids and go somewhere else, right? So if we were able to give that ESA package that I benefit from to any parent, right? Then if a school wants to spend $1 million on a inappropriate sex program, fine. Then the parents can bail.
Where does the money come from?
So with ESAs, you have a constitutional right in Arizona to an appropriate public education, free and appropriate, right? So right now, the way I see it is that free and appropriate public education that's guaranteed through the Arizona Constitution for all kids in Arizona needs to not undermine your social, religious, or political values. And what the public schools are doing now is all three. They're attacking all of those. And so to me, if you take your education dollars and you say, I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna go to a charter school or a home school or a private school or an online school or a tech school or a trade school, and I'm not gonna be involved with that anymore, then to me, that's where we should be doing that. So this money comes from the state, but the simple solution is the parents should control the direction of where their kids get their education. And it shouldn't just be owned by the public school teacher.
To answer your question more pointedly, where does the money come from? There are three sources of funding for public education. Number one, property tax. Number two, state general fund. Number three, the federal government. Each entity funds a little bit different piece of, that's a really general description, so it's really high level. At the end of the day, the majority of money that is spent for education comes from property tax. That means the tax that you're paying on your home is driving education. That's why every single legislative district, every single school board should have at least one Republican on the ballot come this fall to start raising the voice up on the dais. Who in their right mind would approve this? If we're not there, we cede the battlefield to the opposition. That's probably the most important takeaway that we can have out of this conversation.
This question's for you, Representative.
Yes, sir.
If everybody can common sense see that what the schools are doing is borderline pornographic, is there any recourse that they can face in the schools with, putting an injunction or cease and desist? It's bordering on legal. If you could almost consider this felonious pornography that you're introducing to kids, is there any way that you can introduce cease and desist?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Joe. And that's exactly what I was referring to. Senator Borelli and I, in our brief conversation with the representative from the AG's office today, that was a pointed question to them. Now, it's a little bit about process. I have to pull that video, and I believe, Senator, you already sent that to the AG's office, so we're kind of a step ahead. But generally, you have to file a letter of complaint with the AG's office to ask them to open a file. In this particular case, we have a parent. A little bit different process because that parent is a direct constituent of the Attorney General, a voted office, okay? What I would suggest is that if you have a child in school, or you have a grandchild in school, if you have a neighbor child in school, if you know a child in school, find out whether or not they're receiving that, and if they are, alert the parents to it. And the parents can reach out to the AG's office and say, hey, this sure looks like a felony violation to me.
I want to add to that. The AG's office has recently created a online form where you can file these kinds of complaints, and I am 99.9% sure Purple for Parents has that online link on their Facebook page.
Yep.
Make noise.
Jeremiah.
Hi, Jeremiah Coda, LD27. Of course, I do agree with you on ESAs for all, but I think our political climate's a little tough getting that passed to the legislature. So do you see maybe something incremental, and actually to the whole panel here, of trying to expand the ESAs, maybe something a little bit more incremental, maybe something along Representative Bullock's, what she tried to pass this year with, kind of an opt-out for students who are being bullied, or maybe even along the lines of like a religious exemption or rights of conscience exemption for ESAs.
I'm open to any suggestion that makes ESA for all a reality, whether that's phased in or if it's an opportunity where we can essentially get it to everybody through some mechanism. I don't really care what that is. I think legislatively, working with other legislators on the language that is palatable to the majority of both houses would be fine. The end goal for me is ESA for all, period. And I think that if we can get that, then like I said, all of these programs, all of these issues become solvable, because a school district is going to go, whoa, we're losing 40% of our kids to ESAs and they're going to school literally across the street from us. We need to stop taking off the parents, right? Problem solved.
So Jeremiah, you asked a really good question, and incrementalism is definitely a tactic in the strategy of righting the ship education-wise. One of the things, and I'm sorry that Mr. Fillmore isn't here, the concept of integrating apprenticeship would pull in some allies. So think about the apprenticeship journeyman program. You have labor unions, everything from carpenters to electricians to pipe fitters, plumbers, welders. They typically, and this isn't a generalization to their rank and file, typically they'll vote Democrat. They may be registered Democrat, but quite often, and I've run into this a lot lately, registered Democrats who are voting Republican because they know that the folks that are in the Democrat camp are not representing their interests, because we got guys that are pipe fitters, 55 years old, they'd like to retire. There's nobody coming in behind them. So this means that businesses go out of business if they retire, because the folks that are coming in behind them aren't ready yet. So the point that I'm trying to make is I think that when you are able to bring different resources together to place pressure on the legislative will, if you will, that's where you can advance something like an apprenticeship program, an apprenticeship scholarship program for kids that have said, hey, I don't want to go into debt, but one day I might like to go to college, just not today.
Great. We're going to go to the back of the room. You've been waiting for a while. Do you still have a question?
Me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I have a question about education budget, since it is the majority of what can be controlled within our state budget. And I want to speak to state testing. So quite a bit of that budgeting goes towards millions and millions of dollars goes towards state standardized testing like the AZ Merit, which isn't actually a valid or reliable assessment, and it's based off of a flawed assessment from Florida. And it doesn't serve any other purpose than basically to frustrate the teachers in the classroom and to make money for the testing companies. So the cycle that we've seen in education is they'll introduce an exam, the teachers quickly figure out how to teach to that test with those new standards that are driving the exam, and then once they get a hold of that, get the hang of it, they change the standards and they change the test. And then you see the 30% proficiency rate on the exam. So, and you also burn about a month of curriculum time. So, like the entire month of April.
So what's the
My
question?
question is, what can you do to help us with this? Because it's grossly inefficient, and it's wasting my money and my time.
So there's also the element of that schools and teachers are held accountable to the test scores, and
But
then
we're
they're
not anymore.
right.
That
But I'm
was
saying
nixed this last year.
Yeah.
Right. But like as an example, they're testing the school's rating is based on some of that, right? And that the kids that have special needs, like my kids, were being tested under these programs, and a lot of them don't pass, right? And then that's skewing the numbers, right? So I think this is one of those things where show me a better test would be one of the questions I would have, right? Or show me a better system for evaluating kids, teachers, and schools. If we could find another way to evaluate it. My problem with the mantra of let's get rid of the standardized test is where's the accountability then?
Well,
How do we hold them accountable?
We can't get rid of it because it's a federal mandate, and our Title I funding is Title I and Title II funding is directly tied to it. And I'm not against state standardized testing. I'm against the bloat of the money that's being spent and the waste of your children's time in the classroom, because the entire month of April was shot.
We're testing the wrong thing. We're not looking at the whole child. And if you look at the empowerment scholarship accounts, that's why parents are choosing to leave, because that's allowing their child to have a future in maybe the academic arts or in drafting or engineering and design. We're not allowing that choice right now in public schools. We're lock, key, and step, and we've locked the parents out. So we need to, if you look at Denver right now, the school choice forms are on the forms in the registration office. Our kids should not be held hostage in a D or F school. It's that simple. And that's what we have. We have schools that are underperforming and that have been D and F for 3 years now. What's changed? So the parents have to stand up. They have to ask for the form for school choice, and they've got to start exercising it. or the public schools need to step up our game. If we have a D or an F school, why hasn't something changed in there?
Kim, you had a question.
My head is swimming. 20 years as a Republican on a school board. Pam served on a school board. So many questions. First, I would caution us all when we're talking about this not to make blanket statements about how horrible teachers are or how horrible our schools are. We've got two beautiful Republican teachers in the back that work hard. We've got one up here. That's the first way to just lose our message. You know, our children are there. We need to remember that it's important that we win, and that's when we win. So to my question, I had when I was still on the school board, we were working this, and I had a meeting with the Goldwaters with our superintendent at the time to see if we could work on this. And it goes to your question on teaching. What can be done to change it so that because the test is supposed to be testing standards, to embed the standards so that the standards are part of their curriculum and you test and move, remediate, and you're not backfilling. And then the curriculum and the testing are all together. You're not teaching to the test. You're
Exactly.
teaching the standards, testing what you teach. They master that, move on, and then we don't have a 30% proficiency.
Right.
It might mean that we get away from the traditional model, but it makes for better students.
No, I appreciate the question, and I'm glad, ma'am, that you brought up the testing mechanism. Okay, I think that you've made a great observation, but I'm going to answer that a little bit with a question to you. How well do you know your kids? Then you know the ones that are advancing and the rate at which they're advancing in their understanding, don't you? You can pick those kids out, and you know which kids are where and which kids, you might have a third of the class is excelling, another third is kind of bumping along, and then you got that 10 to 15% that's like, they need extra love. It's like, I don't know how I get through to this kid. That's Mark Fencham in the 6th grade. I had a teacher who figured out that switch. I'd be darned if I remember what it was, but suddenly I got it. I knew what I was reading. I had to spend a summer in reading lab. But the next thing I know, they come to me and it's like, hey, would you kind of help us with some of these other kids since you've got this figured out? That was an amazing experience for me. But I think, to your point, we are testing for, it's the paper chase. We're chasing money. Schools are chasing money. The state's chasing money. The education industrial complex, as President Eisenhower intimated so long ago, is chasing money. And as long as we do that, and we're not focused on the kids, we're going to measure the wrong thing. Because what we're trying to do as a former realtor, first question for people who are moving here from out of state, what are the schools like? Okay, that's a question I'm not supposed to answer because every school is a great school in Arizona. But more importantly, we're not giving the professionals in the classroom, the teachers, credit for assessing how kids are progressing through the educational process, through that particular piece of curriculum. I don't know how to fix that other than to begin empowering teachers to say, I love this kid to death. He's not ready to advance. We've got to do something over the summer. We've got to do something after school. We've got to bring the parents in. We might need to have another resource. We're overlooking the very person who can actually do something about it and kind of pushing them to the side in pursuit of the dollars. That's my view.
That's great. So I've been told by the boss we are out of time. So if you will join me in thanking these 4 panelists for, I hope that they'll be able to stick around and you can ask them your one-on-one questions after the meeting.